Hi, Alize, and thank you for introducing all of us. So we just had two great sessions, the first one being with Frank-Christophe Peterkam, Frédéric Lebeau, and Amaury Fontaine, which explained basically the transition, and the second one being more an explanation from Patrick Benimé-Doren and Maxime Do, which explained a bit how to transition with containers and so on. So this, of course, for us, raises a lot of questions, and we are quite lucky to have the three of you to share basically your experience with our users. So to share my screen, of course, basically a lot of questions arise. Maybe Thibaut, we can start with you with our first question. So basically, we see more and more companies transforming in order to be ready for the future transition. This might be public cloud, this might be private cloud, it might be community cloud. We see things like Gaia. Frédéric talked about that. But basically, when did you realize that change was coming and your company had to adapt for this change?
Yes, Rodrigue. So, in fact, there is already probably 6 years that I think about cloud, and it started with the SaaS application like Exchange Online and so on. So, the fact to go to kind of, Exchange is more platform as a service now, but it was already in my mind at that moment. But indeed, there was some slowness at the decision makers to go to the cloud for security reasons for the most part of them. But indeed, I think that there is a real mindset change since probably 2 years or 3 years, because now the cloud is becoming something that you can use. And so I think that's probably in 2017 or 18, we started to think really about the cloud and start to move.
What about you, Sebastian? When did you realize that on your side?
Well, for us, it's a bit of a particular case, but if I have to put a date, I think everything started back in 2016 with the creation of our new extranet platform for our clients and partners. At that time, it became clear for us that the way IT was working in the past was not going to last. A keyword became time to market, and clearly we were not equipped to answer business expectations. So we looked at everything that was going around. Cloud is one of them. So we knew from that time that we had to prepare for the cloud. But going to the cloud still is not yet the purpose of what we want to reach. For us, it's really meeting business expectations, I would say.
So you're a bit the outsider, on the opposite of Thibaut. What about you, Didier?
So on our side at PwC, so I think the adoption of the cloud was taken without really knowing that it was on the plan. So mainly by adopting the Google Suite. So that's a PwC network decision. So we have full Google, which by definition is on the cloud. We adopted Salesforce, which is also on the cloud. So definitely we use a couple of services since I would say 3 to 4 years, mainly on the SaaS mode. So one of the things also we discovered, I would say, in the 12, 40, 24 last months is about the reactivity and also the access to some technologies. So we know that Power BI and other technology are just available on the cloud. So there is no escape. If you would like to use those technologies, is a way to go to on the cloud. And the next thing is also the fact that the business want to get very fast delivery, fast results, and very high flexibility. And there is no other alternative than just going to the cloud. So I think we are in since years, and we will definitely, I would say, accelerating our integration on the cloud at this stage.
So maybe, Olivier, sticking with you and jumping to our next question. So you are transitioning to the cloud, you mentioned that, but what is your preferred approach? Are you more of a greenfield, adapt and shifts and adapt? What's your take on this?
So I think one of the approach which is not on that slide is the first things I would like to do is to decommission. Is to decommission application, is to get rid of old applications. So we do have a lot of applications, like a lot of companies. We built a lot, we developed a lot. So what we do, we will check all the application landscape we have, try first to decommission, and in terms of accessing what's the new services, going to the SaaS, try to have software as a service first. That's the first choice. And then if we cannot do that, for sure, we'll just migrate to the cloud by trying to use as much as we can the capability of the cloud. So moving to the cloud just to be on the cloud on the infra side doesn't really make sense for us. It's really to leverage on what delivers on the cloud, which is mainly then adapt and then shift. And in some cases, we will do greenfield. So we have new products starting from scratch, and definitely they are built and designed architecture based on the cloud component and services we discovered in the session this morning. So definitely for us is SaaS first, and then use the cloud when it makes sense. Still with the ambitions to try to get rid as much as we can of the local infra. Is the regulatory streams and dimension is validated.
Yes, the regulatory stream is still a very valid point in Luxembourg for cloud solutions.
Yeah.
Thibaut, you're in Belgium, so this doesn't impact you. But what do you think about this question?
Yeah, in fact, it's a bit the same than Olivier. The idea I had in the beginning was to say, okay, if something in the cloud can do what one of my basic blocks do on-premise, then I can use it. So first, SaaS for sure. Then I'm an infrastructure guy, so I think about first infrastructure and application. Then maybe it's not the good way, Sebastian. Then I go for greenfield, of course, because I continue to create some old school design, but that some needs that keep to be targeted. And then, of course, if application needs some new way of doing, like microservices and so on, then of course the shift and that is probably the good solution. But as Olivier said, first SaaS, then greenfield.
What about you, Sebastian? We know you as an outsider, I mentioned it already. Now we are flying back to Luxembourg, but to the insurance world. What's your take?
Well, taking into consideration what I just said, for us, change is always driven by a business need. So it would be extremely difficult to start a transformation just for IT, between brackets. So for us, the way to go was to define a new architecture that would answer the business needs. And also the insurance sector in Luxembourg is still behind the banking sector in terms of what we are allowed to do, and probably also in terms of comprehension of what we are allowed to do. And at this stage, putting client data in any form of cloud would be a no-go for us. But it doesn't prevent us to prepare ourselves. And another element that is important is the cost of migration. And based on the first investigations we made, we currently don't expect the cost of infrastructure to become lower after a cloud migration. But that still requires a deeper analysis. That's how we started working on reviewing first our CI/CD and development strategy to work with microservices instead of big monolithic applications. And for the deployment pipeline, we are moving to containers. So containerization is also for us a way to tackle something that becomes very critical for us. That is to say, limiting the vulnerabilities. And reducing the vulnerability footprint in our applications and server landscape has become a priority. So for us, definitely, it's first adapt and then shift when it will be deemed possible.
So if we stick then with you, so based on this, where do you believe lies the future? You're a bit of the outsider, so when you will transition from a traditional on-site infrastructure to a future platform, might be now, might be in the future, how do you see it? It's more of a rehost, replatform, refactor. You already gave some hints. You talked about DevOps, you talked about micro-oriented architecture, you talked about containers.
Yeah.
Give us a bit more on that.
And that is what we are currently doing. So, and we want to do it, as you said, with a real DevOps approach, using as much as possible infrastructure as code. We know that the role of developer now will extend far beyond just the applications development. He will have a say in where his code will be deployed. And the same goes for our operations team. They must have a far better understanding of what is deployed on the infrastructure if we want this all to work. So containerization is one of the aspects, and if I look at this, we're clearly putting in place a refactoring of our infrastructure.
And you, Olivier?
But again, I think that the objective will be to leverage on everything which is provided on the cloud and not go there just to go there, as we said, in terms of infrastructure. So we need to replatform or to refactor. Once again, it depends what's behind those words, but we need to adapt the application and the service to make sure that we use them as with all the features delivered. And as you said, Sebastian, indeed, in terms of trainings and roles for the teams, it's a big change between the pure infra guys and the dev guys. That's kind of new disciplines which combine all those knowledge and execution in terms of dev to operations. So definitely we will embrace the cloud, the future, and those features, sorry, and we will have to train and to revisit our organizations. That's clear.
Now, maybe Thibaut, a last word on that one.
Yeah, so I have some customer of mine that simply come to me and said, okay, we want to get rid of our on-premise data center. So indeed, sometimes I do rehosting, but always with a transformation journey in mind. And so probably in the future, I think that the refactoring will be the way to go, because containerization is starting to replace, in fact, what you see of the infrastructure on premise, and Kubernetes will be is already a big changer in that scope. So yeah, I continue to make rehosting, but I think that refactoring will be the future.
So that is actually exactly the question I have for you now. Where do you think lies the most benefits from all of that? So which one do you think would bring the most benefits, Thibaut?
Yeah, for me, the first that come in my mind is the capacity management that we don't have to think about anymore. But at the other side, the costs become a problem. So indeed, I think that the flexibility of the cloud is probably the best thing that I can get from it for the moment. But there is a real learning curve to take into account. I think the last speakers speak about the governance, the cost optimization, the monitoring, and so on. So indeed, it's a real change of mind to have. But the capacity management is really something that I'd like into the cloud.
So you, Sebastian, you talked about something very interesting, that in your case, it was very important also to go to operations very fast, so to have a fast go-to-market. So how do you think you can achieve the best?
Yeah, for us, yeah, it's definitely refactoring, because what we are putting in place now will allow us to get the advantages of our new infrastructure before even moving to the cloud. And as we still don't know yet when this is going to happen, it is crucial for us to have this possibility to have a faster time to market. How do we get that? By making the services smaller, so that when we can modify them, we can also deploy them very quickly. Currently, we have a bunch of big monolithic applications, and deploying them is an event. Every time we have to book the persons that will deploy the applications, make sure that the testing is done afterwards. Really, my purpose here is to make of these deployments non-events, that they are not the normal way of working, you know.
And you, Olivier?
Well, in terms of, I would say, what will bring the most in those moves, first of all, is, as we also discussed already, is the access to technology, to some technology for the business. And I think Sebastian was right. We're just moving on the cloud just for like an IT project, is really to bring value to the business. So in terms of getting access to technology to support some processes and other things. So flexibility for the business definitely is definitely there. And as we discussed also with clear and strong financial management and follow-up. But one of the things also that really will help us is that we know that the infrastructure, Thibaut is from that side, it's quite complex and fascinating kind of stuff, but still on our side, our business is not to manage infra, to manage servers and manage data center. Our business is really to deliver value for the business, and moving to the cloud will definitely brings that value by having those services delivered on the cloud, supported, operated, and to get rid of those constraints. So one of the things also we see with those moves is motivation from the teams. So we see that we have started our journey on our side. There is a clear motivation from the teams to be trained, to be ready. It's a really new, I would say, atmosphere and a new movement within the IT teams, which also going to the business side. So the business is also very clear and very proud of the fact that we are moving. Even in Luxembourg, we are moving to the cloud. So for all those reasons, that really good motivation and really a lot of opportunities behind that. So I see all those things behind those words.
So maybe sticking with you, Olivier, because you already mentioned it a bit. So we talked about rehosting, replatforming, refactoring, and so on. But you and Thibaut both mentioned that's definitely not the only answer to a transition. And SaaS, so software as a service, is definitely part of it. So basically, what is your opinion about SaaS and the adoption?
So on our side, and I think it should be the case in a lot of companies. So we should not fight anymore against software like Salesforce or PlanView or whatever solution which are there on the market where companies are making that as a core business. And as a company like PwC and others, will not make a difference by having a financial system or by having a time machine system or whatever. That's not where we should fight. The approach for us is really to use the software as a service solution where it makes sense, it brings value to what we need as a commodities mainly, and then develop and innovate where we will make a difference on the market. So the idea is really to have our IT teams focusing on that aspect, and that's what we're really doing now within our firm. As an example, we are using more and more software as a service platforms for the core, I would say, of the company, the core system, but everything which is really related to clients and to the market will be probably a combination of services or for modules and developments. So SaaS definitely there for the core system within the firm.
And you, Thibaut, you also mentioned SaaS already. So what's your take?
In fact, it's complete nonsense to not use what it's offered as a standard component in the SaaS application. The main basic that I can think about is your mailbox. 5 years ago, you had to have on-premise exchanges, farms, and manage it by yourself. Now you just click 3 times on the Office 365 website and you have one. So for a company that do not work in the IT activities as core business, it's completely nonsense to not use that. But indeed, I think that the fact that we are using SaaS on one side authorizes us to focus on the real business that of the company and can use that time to develop new application and be ready for the new challenge of the future. And so, from our point of view, as Olivier said, SaaS will be used, and then you will develop your own business with some microservice and so on, for sure.
Sebastian, on your side, we know it's more tricky. You're on the insurance side of the business, and you mentioned already regulations don't make it easy to transition to the cloud, which kind of closes the door to SaaS solution because they are mostly provided in the cloud, not only, but mostly. What's your take? Maybe of a future adoption, who knows?
Yeah, we still have the good old Exchange servers on premise for security reasons. I think the day we will move to Exchange servers on the cloud is not tomorrow. But well, security is the main reason for which we want to limit our usage of SaaS services right now. One exception that we made is for Salesforce. But again, we just use it as a tool to follow up our sales pipeline. It's not used as a client database. So you see our possibilities to use SaaS applications is currently very limited. But I have no doubt that in the near future, a few years, maybe less, the regulations and our understanding of the regulation will change and allow us to move forward to this kind of services.
Perfect. So maybe if we can jump now to a conclusion, Sebastian, in case you would have to choose one of them, Greenfield, Adapt, then Shift, and Adapt, Rehost, Replatform, or Refactor, where would you go?
I take two. I take Adapt and Shift and Refactor. For the moment, that's our approach.
What about you?
So on our side, definitely, well, Greenfield for all the new application and services for the market, and software as a service, which is not there in terms of adoption, but definitely that's the key drivers, definitely.
And you, Thibaut?
Yeah, greenfield for sure. And then if we can think about refactoring, I will take that one second decision. Yeah, purpose.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I would maybe have to give my take based on all what you guys mentioned, I think there's probably no wrong way. Well, you can do mistakes, but there's no wrong way of doing it. You guys all provided different approach. Sebastian being really the outsider to it. Olivier and Thibaut, you have similar approach, yet differences. My take would be that a bit like Olivier, you cannot, or there is no reason to transition. If you transition, take advantage of it. And that would be a bit my take. So I would be also for the refactoring and of course for the SaaS solutions. Now, that is my take based on also all what you say. And Sebastian, you're maybe not there yet, but one day you will be in the same position than Olivier and Thibaut when regulation will facilitate it also for you. So, Sebastian, Olivier, Thibaut, thank you all three for sharing your opinion with our viewers. And I think we'll be done for now. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.